If you would have asked me a month ago to stand in front of everyone and give a speech, I would have cried and just never brought myself to do it. Social anxiety following the COVID-19 pandemic should not be as challenging as it has been for some of us to cope with. Instead, I insist on finding ways to deal with this anxiety and lessen the burden it puts on our everyday life. Social anxiety is something I deal with almost every day. It was not until the COVID pandemic I started experiencing symptoms. Today, I will be discussing social anxiety, what it is and how it affects the people that experience it, professional social anxiety therapy options, and also address a few ways to incorporate self-help strategies into your daily life. The COVID-19 pandemic, which caused the world to shut down for 2+ years, has made it easier for people with social anxiety to avoid social interaction, but it also has made it difficult for us to adjust back into a normal routine. Jessica Caporcio wrote in the Medical News today that people living with social anxiety have an intense and persistent fear of embarrassment, humiliation, or rejection from others. Day-to-day life interactions such as relationships, daily routines, work, school, and other activities cause significant anxiety. Other signs may include speaking very quietly, providing minimal detail in response to questions, and avoiding making eye contact. Social anxiety following the COVID pandemic is a little different. During this time, people with social anxiety may also notice that they feel anxious about making phone or video calls. An estimated 10% of people will develop severe psychological problems such as mood disorders, anxiety disorders, or post-traumatic stress disorders following our current pandemic, but the percentages are said to be much higher. The best way to treat this fear of social situations is through therapy or medication, maybe both. One form of professional social anxiety therapy is cognitive behavioral therapy. Generally, you need about 12 to 16 therapy sessions to see improvement in social situations. Teamwork is key in social anxiety therapy. You and your therapist will work together to identify your negative thoughts and address ways to start changing them. The goal is to build confidence, learn skills to manage the situations you fear the most, then get out into the world and use them. You may also do role-playing and social skills training as part of your therapy. You might get lessons anywhere from public speaking to how to navigate a party with strangers. Between your sessions, you are expected to practice on your own. Another form of professional help is medication. Your doctors may suggest antidepressants to treat your social anxiety disorder. They may prescribe drugs known as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors and selective serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. Keep in mind that this is not a quick process. It may take between 2 to 6 weeks of work, and it might take a while to figure out the side effects and find the right fit. Some people are able to wean off medication after a few months, but unlike therapy, you may need to stay on medication or your symptoms will return. Although your symptoms are not severe enough for professional help, there are many day-to-day tips to reduce these effects for individuals with mild cases. The first one being deep breathing. This is a way of putting your body into a relaxed state. Try focusing on your breathing. Inhale a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. As you exhale, think relax and release all the tension that is built up. It may help to start practicing this technique a few times per day when you first wake up and before you go to bed when your body is at its most relaxed state. Another daily tip is to aid anxiety is by reducing negative thinking. There are 2 common thought patterns that can contribute to your anxiety: mind reading and personalizing. Mind reading means that you assume what others are thinking about you, and personalizing, which means you assume that the behaviors of others are related to you. For example, think back to a recent social situation in which you remember feeling anxious. Write down what your negative thoughts were before, during, and after the situation. Then ask yourself questions to challenge your negative thoughts and turn them into alternatives. If your negative thought was, people are yawning, they must think I am boring, instead there could be a different explanation. In this case, your alternative thought could be that it had nothing to do with you and that your audience was only tired. There are a few other anxiety-reducing strategies while attending school and/or work, such as telling your employer about your anxiety and ask if you may receive accommodations or support, arrive to meetings early so that you can meet people one by one as they arrive, make a list of questions to ask your teacher or supervisor prior to the meeting and start with the least anxiety-provoking ones, keep up on current events so that it's easier to participate in small talk, get regular exercise, eat healthy food, and avoid caffeine and sugar to reduce your anxiety symptoms. These are just a few ways to lessen the trauma that social anxiety pinpoints in our lives.
So how can folks with social anxiety ease back into everyday activities as the world reopens?
Oh, great question. Baby steps, number one. This doesn't have to be an all or none thing like a light switch that has to be accomplished on day one. We have to remember what we have been through and what we are still going through, recognize and normalize that nothing that's going on right now really seems normal, and that you're not alone. And if you're really, really struggling, there is so much professional help out there, either remotely via apps or telemedicine or in person with mental health professionals.
As a recap, I just explained the problems social anxiety can cause in people's lives, a solution through medical help, and gave ways to visualize techniques to incorporate when anxiety provoked. Social anxiety following the COVID-19 pandemic should not be as challenging as it has been for some of us to cope with. Instead, I insist on finding ways to deal with this anxiety and lessen the burden it puts on our everyday life. Even if you do not experience any of the symptoms of social anxiety I discussed earlier in this speech, I still urge you to try out these daily strategies to help improve the overall well-being of your life. Social anxiety has affected my life in many ways. Most importantly, it has changed how I view myself. The COVID pandemic did nothing to improve this issue, it only made it worse for me. I am embracing what I am most afraid of, and I hope you can too.